Hello everybody, it's Kimberly Sheridan from Losing It with Kimberly. Good to see you again. I can't see you. Good to hear you again. Whoops, I can't hear you either. I'm glad you're here. How about that? I slept pretty well. You can hear that I slept pretty well. I actually had like 11 to 5 and then maybe, 5:45 to 7. So I slept pretty well, and getting up at 7, here on the treadmill about 8:17. Had to make some new coffee. I folded up some laundry that I had hanging. To me, that's one of the bad parts about wearing workout clothes is when you wash them, you really should hang them to dry, because most of the fibers that these types of clothes are made with degrade more if you put them in the dryer. Not to mention, obviously, shrinking, which I also can't afford for them to do. But really, the degradation of the fabric and the fibers is more of concern, because I want them to last. I don't want to have to buy new ones every year or every several months or whatever. But you don't need to know about my laundry. That's not why we're here. I'm also a little bit late because my daughter got up early today, and we were chatting in the kitchen, and we can chat for hours, just going back and forth, bing, 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 going off on all these tangents. As you see, she comes by going off on tangents naturally, because you hear me do it every day. So anyway, I was telling her, I'm like, you've got me captive with your charm. You've got me stuck here because I can't get out of this conversation that I love. And everybody with teenagers knows that you've got to capture them when they're willing and when they're available. But we did that yesterday too. So I got enough charm out of her yesterday. I can talk to her later today if her mood and my availability collide again. So in general, I feel good today. My body feels good. Yesterday was a weights day, and so that means today for me is a cardio only day. So that's pretty good. I forgot to mention this yesterday actually, but I ended up standing. Here I'm telling you that I'm going to cut back on my standing. And I ended up instead of 8 hours, I ended up standing 12 and a half hours. This wasn't yesterday, this was the day before yesterday. And I'm trying to back down. I'm telling you, I'm going to back down from that 8 hours a day, not because of ability, but because I need to work on some more strategic aspects of my business. But I kept getting swept up into other work projects, and things my kids needed from me, because that was their first day back with me. I actually did chat with my son in the car on the way back, and he said that he also, he's been using that standing desk. He said he also has more trouble thinking when standing, and so he actually phrased it better than I did. He said that he found it was easier to do things that he was consuming rather than creating. And he's majoring in video game design, and so he's working on some projects. So he does have creative work, and then he has consuming, because he's a teenage college student on break. So of course he's consuming. He's on YouTube all day, playing games, etc. So I thought that was pretty cool, though, to find that even he, who I thought might be able to think while standing, because he and his dad both, I swear, you get a phone in their hand to talk, and they're just pacing around the whole house. My son is up and down the stairs, through every room, while he's on a telephone call. He did it yesterday when his grandma called him to wish him a happy birthday. So I didn't think that he'd have trouble standing at a standing desk and doing any kind of work, but he actually said that he had noticed the same thing. So I thought that was sort of interesting. But in general, yesterday, or the day before yesterday, here I'm saying 8 hours. I'm going to cut back so I can focus on things that are more strategic in my business. And I end up standing for 12 and a half hours. But in my case, I'm a single parent. We share custody, but when they're here, when they need you and you're the only one available, you need to help them out with whatever they're doing. And so, in my case, while I don't have my kids all, that would be free time, I suppose, for somebody that didn't have other things that came up. But in my case, as soon as I went into shared custody, the weeks that my kids were with their dad were those recession years that I've talked about, where our business was, going down the tube. So like 2008 to 2011. And then literally the month, I think it was within the same week, our business was in a building, and we leased a floor of a building, and that building was sold in October of 2011. The building was sold. That released me from this lease that I was stuck in, and finally the door was opening to freedom, and my father passed away. Like I said, within a week, my father passed away. He and my mom had a late in life divorce. And so he had a house that was filled to the brim with stuff and junk. He didn't have a will. And he had been the one, once the business had taken over my life, he had been the one that took over taking my mom to her appointments for her lung bacteria, because she had to go to a specialist for that. And at that point, it was more a maintenance mode. Like, he didn't have to be, really on top of it, taking every note, during the doctor visits, doing research, etc. It was just a maintenance mode. At that point, she had the lung bacteria for 3 years, and it's chronic, so there's just a prescribed form of treatment for it, and so, but he was the one taking her, and that was in Richmond, in a different city than I live in, 4 hours away, sometimes 2.5 hours away, and sometimes 4 hours away, depending on traffic, so as soon as, I get out of this business, then my dad passes away, house filled to the brim, financial stuff of his own, no will, now he can't help out my mom, and so I'm back to having to go back down to help her out. And then once, Alzheimer's came in, a few years after that. So I've never had, since getting divorced, that what I imagine might be, those glorious open spaces when your kids are with their other parent. And at some point, honestly, I think what's going to happen, my daughter has 2 years of high school left, so I think that I'm not going to experience that, because she's going to go to college in 2 years, and at this point, I don't think I'm going to have that experience of having the shared custody thing really give me those open weeks. It's sort of weird. I'm sure there's other people like me out there with different circumstances. But in any case, that was all to say that during, what was that all to say? My goodness, have you ever tried talking nonstop while walking and trying to compose your thoughts? I'm going to blame it on age. I don't think it's age. But in any case, that's all to say that yesterday the day before, I was planning on having that 8 hours of standing desk time back up to a smaller amount. I was going to sit down. I was going to do that strategic visioning work in my business. And instead, I ended up standing for 12.5 hours that day. That doesn't make sense, but my kids needed something from me. My daughter actually needed several things from me in order to feel supported by me. And she had just come back, and oftentimes that's what happens is when they first come back from their dads, number one, everybody's like blah, 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 trying to catch up on things, even though we're in touch on Discord, which is like a chat software. Even though we're in touch on Discord all week long, there's still a lot, obviously, of things that happen during a week. But she needed things from me, and we ended up spending a lot of time together working on those. And so I didn't really have this time to put to strategies because I need to work on the actual work of the day in my business. So that's how I ended up having more standing hours when my thought was to go less. it's crazy. I think that today, now 2 days later, is the day. I think this is the one that I'm going to get that time to do the strategic planning, and that means maybe today's the day I stand less. I don't know. We're just all working it out as we go along. One of the things that is interesting to me in this process, and I've known it before, but of course this is just a reminder, is modeling. And I told you that my son is now doing 90 minutes. I think I told you that he's now standing for 90 minutes a day at his standing desk. He started at 60 minutes a day. I bought these standing desks. I bought one for me maybe, I don't know, a year and a half ago. And I wasn't using it regularly. But then I think I used it some. And then one of the kids said, hey, maybe I'd like one of those. I think it was my son, because he had been seeing me use it before he went to college. And so he wanted to get one. And then my daughter said, hey, I'd like one. And so ultimately we end up with 3 of these standing desks, an adjustable thing that you put on top of a regular desk that can lift up and down. So they lived in my house. The standing desks lived in my house, mostly unused, for maybe a year or so. But then once I pulled mine back out and started making it a goal, that modeled for my son that maybe he'd like to do that. And so he started 60 minutes a day, I'd say maybe 3 weeks ago or so. And then recently, several days ago, he decided that he would take it up to 90 minutes. If I remember correctly, I do think that I suggested it. Hey, maybe since you're finding it easier to do the hour, maybe you'd like to take it up to 90 minutes. Try that. So he tried that, and he's, stuck with that for the last several days. And that just came from me doing it, right? I didn't set a goal for him to do it. He came up with the idea to do it. The desk has been around forever for him to use. So now both kids last week were at their dad's house asking him if they could get standing desk at his house, because my son didn't like only getting to do it every other week, and my daughter couldn't, which I completely understand this part because I'm the same exact way. She couldn't motivate herself to get into the habit of doing it on my weeks when she knew she wasn't going to be able to do it the weeks that she was at her dad's house. So it took some wrangling, because he didn't want to put out $200 if they weren't actually going to use them, which I completely understand because that's what I had done originally, and the ones I get are $100 each, and I sent them the link, to the ones I got because I've been really happy with them, and I shopped around when I bought them, but there might be better ones out there now, or the one I have is 27 pounds, and so there might be ones that have some other qualities like being lighter but yet stable, also stable, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know what ones he ended up getting, but they convinced him because my son had already been doing it, for 3 weeks or so, consistently every single day. And my daughter, promised that she also would do it, if she had one at both his house and my house. And we could have transported them back and forth, but like I said, 27 pounds, what are we going to transport? 54 pounds of standing desk from house to house, every single week. Plus my daughter's getting back into exercise and she needs 5 and 8 pound dumbbells. So now we're taking, 16 pounds of dumbbells plus 10, that's 26 plus 54 pounds of standing desk. That was just silly, right? We get our workout just traipsing the things back and forth. So in any case, I think that at this point they're going to have standing desk at his house by the time they go back there, and then figure that out. So at this point, they're going to have standing desks at my house, and by the time they get back to his house, they'll have a standing desk there and can get into using both of them, weekly, and get into a good habit, because I completely agree with my daughter. I found it very hard to establish good habits when I was going back and forth from my house one week to my mother's house one week to spend the time with her and take care of her and take her to appointments and, handle all her paperwork that was coming through, refill her medicine containers, count the Advil, because, she used to, number one, we never took a lot of medicine, but she took Advil if she had a headache, right? So I couldn't take that away, and I couldn't put it in a pill box because I don't know how many she's going to need over a period of time. And so she, though, got a little, once she started getting more confused on things, I realized that she was just taking them like they were vitamins, she was supposed to take one every day or something like that. And so I started having to count them. So, there was a stage in this Alzheimer's degeneration, I suppose I could use the word there, where I wasn't afraid she was going to wander off out of her house. And she stayed in her home. She stayed in her backyard doing gardening or whatever things that she could still do at that point. She couldn't write checks. She had a guy that did her lawn, but I would make sure I wrote a check out for him and put it in a certain place for him to get it. Blah, blah, blah. There were a lot of things that I could do to keep her on track for 1 week at a time. So when I was at my house, I had my kids. When I was at her house, I took care of her stuff, took her to doctor's appointments, etc. The unfortunate thing when you have a somewhat rare condition like her lung bacteria is she was being seen at a teaching hospital because she was being seen in a teaching hospital. And so, it's not like, at least my experience with this situation was, it wasn't like a doctor where you call up and you say, well, what times and days do you have available, that we can come in? And you look at both of your calendars and you come up with some sort of compromise, of what's going to work for both parties. Essentially, our experience was they announced to you when your date and time of your appointment is going to be, and you either need to be there or you don't get an appointment, So it really blocked things off, and that was another reason I needed to be there somewhat frequently. And that went on for 4 years. That's, again, where I made my mistake. However, it's very difficult to announce to your parent that you are taking over their choice and moving them out of their home that they've been in for more than 50 years. At that point, I think, more than 50? 66, 76, 86, 96, 2006, 50. So 52 years. We still had a lot of neighbors that I had grown up with. So a number of people on our road had still, lived there, that whole time. And so it was, and she knew people around town. People knew her. I mean, it was quite an upheaval. So, and my mother had her parents in our home for 4 years. She had brought them into our living room and made it into a hospital room for 4 years when my grandfather had Alzheimer's. My grandmother had a stroke and was bedridden. My mother was not a nurse, but she essentially made herself into a nurse. And that she had them. And then after they passed away, she went into elder care so that she could help people stay in their homes instead of being put in assisted living or nursing homes. So she had pretty much committed her life to it during her last 15 years of working. So I think that added to the weight of sitting with her and telling her, I'm moving you. But with someone with Alzheimer's, there is a certain point that you get to that you do make the choice like you would for a mentally disabled child. I mean, they're not part of the decision. They can't be. They don't have the capacity to be. All that to say, that's why I kept her in her house for 4 years. That's why I can understand my daughter saying it's very hard for me to establish a habit when I'm only doing it at your house, Mom, and then I'm going to Dad's house every other week, and I, don't have the weights there, right? Or I don't have the treadmill there, or in this case, I don't have the standing desk there, I'm going ahead also and getting her weights for there. I'm going to create a workout for her because she's now, in addition to the standing desk, has communicated that she wants to get back into working out. And we looked through some pictures, and she sort of showed me what kind of appearance that she's going for, because there's all sorts of different, we all have our biological body shape, but then there's also different body shapes that you can achieve with different types of exercise and different kinds of weight conditioning and changes in the kitchen. So I wanted to know what she was looking for so that I can help coach her to get there. And also, luckily, what she's looking for is an alignment with our biology. We are not these 5'10", fine-boned, model shapes. That's just never, we're never going to be that. We're never going to be the little size 2 tiny people that wear a size 0 or size 2, because that's not our build. I'm not muscular bones. That's not what we're shaped like. But that's not what she's going for, right? So we looked through some magazines, and she showed me what she's going for, and she actually sort of wants to look more buff. Not competitive buff, not taking supplements buff, just really strong, So that's good. So I'm going to put together a little routine for her to do that she can do at my house. She can do at his house. And she won't have the treadmill there, but we can work out some cardio things that she can do. But again, what I'm getting to, I guess, is it all goes back to modeling, that the things that you are doing right now in your life to make improvements, you might not know it, but you're making an impact on everybody in your household. And it might not be enough of an impact for them to choose to change ever, or it might not be enough of an impact for them to choose to change now, but you are modeling healthier behaviors, you're modeling self-improvement, and at some point, some of the people in your household, whether it's your partner, or your children, or if you have an elderly parent, living with you, they might look at you and say, hey, can you help me come up with some things that I can do? Or, hey, I noticed you were doing X, Y, Z, is there a way I could do that with you? And in the with you category, like if somebody said, can I do that with you? To me, because I'm not somebody that typically works out with others, I wouldn't say yes to that because it would sabotage what I'm doing. But I would find a way to help them, and maybe we do it at the same time, whatever we're doing. Maybe if they know that I'm going to be doing my exercise thing while they're doing theirs, even though we're quote unquote not doing it with each other, maybe that's enough to motivate them, to do it, right? So you can try to find win-win, sort of situations, but just, be aware that you're modeling good and bad behavior for the people around you. I think with, especially with children, like when you're raising children, people talk about the things that we do to model bad behavior for our children, but we've also got to see that we're modeling good behavior for them, even if we're not talking about it. We're just doing what we're doing, right? Quite oftentimes, we end up modeling that behavior for them, just like I'm doing now. My kids, guaranteed, right now, wouldn't be starting to do weight exercises for my daughter, wouldn't be using standing desks if I wasn't doing it, right? Doesn't mean they wouldn't be willing to do it if somebody else said, hey, look what I'm doing. Absolutely, they might have picked it up, but, but they wouldn't be doing it now if I hadn't started doing it again. So, the changes that you're making in your life, you're doing them for you, for sure. Do them for you, not for anybody else. But know that there can be positive ripple effects that you're not even aware are going to happen. So just be aware that there might be positive ripple effects to what you're doing for yourself that you're not even aware are happening, So as you make improvements in your life, even if you're posting online about what you're doing, oftentimes we'll get comments back, oh, you inspired me to do X, Y, Z, and what they're doing might be something different than what you're doing, but just you making that effort to improve yourself is what inspired and motivated that other person, right? So don't dismiss that what you're doing for yourself can have a bigger and grander effect than just the impact that it's having in your life. So I wanted to talk about this other thing, which I was thinking about yesterday, because, exercise has not been hard for me to stick with during times that I didn't have everything, all my time being filled in, like every nook and cranny being filled in with other demands. Exercise has never been my biggest challenge. However, food has most definitely been a big challenge for me. Like when I think about cutting back on certain foods that I feel like I need, because I'm truly medicating with it as an emotional eater. When I think about cutting back on them, I just feel sacrifice, feel like that's not fair. I feel like I need that. I mean, I've definitely thought about when taking trips somewhere to a place that might not have junk food available. I thought about, well, I'm going to need to pack, this, that, and that, to make sure that I have the junk food that I'm going to need. I mean, so while historically I wasn't overweight, and as I've said, I managed it to the level to do enough exercise not to get overweight, I definitely have thought much about food. And so what I was thinking about yesterday is, what can you do if you just keep letting yourself off the hook? Like you set a goal and then you promise yourself you're going to start doing it. So you're going to start exercising, you're going to cut out junk food. You're going to get healthier. This is the week. I've got to do it. I've been telling myself I'm going to do this, and I really need to do it. I want to lose these pounds, I want to feel better, whatever you're telling yourself, and you've decided that this is the time that you really want to do it. But yet, every single time you let yourself off the hook, right? You get through the day, like my big time of eating is the evening, right? So I'll go through my day, I'll be, I don't want to say good, I don't like that value judgment at all when it comes to eating, but let's say I go through the day and I've eaten healthy all day. If I've had snacks, they've been healthy snacks. I can blow the whole thing between after dinner and bedtime. Even if I have a relatively early bedtime, like 9 o'clock, right, I can, blow my whole day of working toward my goal just in that small, 3-hour period. And so if we keep doing that, we start to lose hope that we're ever going to stick to anything, right? That we're ever going to be able to do what we set out to do. We just keep sort of chipping away at our belief in ourselves. So yesterday I was thinking about, well, what do you do if that's the case? And the interesting part is it came back to me, you do what I've been saying this whole time, which is you make your goal smaller, right? And so in baseball terminology, which it's amazing to me how much of that is woven through our day-to-day vernacular, but in baseball terminology, it's like, if you're swinging for the fences, it would be like you're always going for a home run, and it's not good enough just to get to first base. And so the analogy for that would be, you're going for, I'm going to cut out junk food. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to eat 1,200 calories and no more, right? And so then if you go over the 1,200 calories, or if you eat a piece of junk food that day, then you're a failure, right? But instead, in a baseball analogy, if you said, all I'm going for is I'm going to get to first base, there are there's 3 bases plus home plate. So I'm going to get to first base, and that's all I'm going for. I'm not trying to make a home run. We're just getting around all 3 bases and getting to home plate in one bounding effort. I'm just going to get to first base. That's it. And so with this, if you found yourself trying to make a goal to cut back on food or to exercise every day or whatever it is, and you're just not doing it, and you see yourself chipping away at your belief in yourself and your motivation to try again, the answer is to make your goal smaller, to only try to get to first base. So in the food situation, maybe it's not to cut out all junk food. Maybe it's to say, if I look at a typical day, I typically eat 3 snacks a day. I'm going to make one of them a healthy snack. That's all I'm committing to, just one, right? And so you can be much more likely to be successful with that. And it's a new sort of track that you're putting yourself on. So you're not necessarily attached anymore to that, well, I've tried this and I've failed in the past so many times. Why should I try again? This is sort of a completely new track that you're putting yourself on to say, and this is the first time you're trying it, right? You're saying, I'm just going to swap out one of my junky snacks, and you'll be much more likely to be able to hit that, right? And to have success with that. And then you can build up from there, but just stick with that small success. And I didn't realize until yesterday, I knew I've been talking about this almost every conversation we have, but I didn't realize until yesterday that is the answer to But I didn't realize until yesterday that is the answer to a situation where you keep letting yourself off the hook, right? And so I'm going to employ that when I start to change my eating. I might try. It's been a long time since I've tried to change my eating to lose weight. I have had failures cutting back where I was doing the right thing and didn't get the result because of whatever was going on in my body at the time. My circumstances are different now, some of them, right? I'm still in menopausal years, but I'm not in the high stress situation I was in. So I'm not, producing cortisol like a cortisol manufacturing plant, so I might have different results now. I do think that, I do know, even before my high stress time started, it was no longer enough for me to cut out junk food and to have that make me lose weight, even with exercise. Like, I do know that this time I'm going to have to exercise, cut out junk food, and eat probably 1,200 calories a day to see any movement on the scale. And I really don't want to go below that. So that's what I'm going to go for. So I am actually going for the whole enchilada. That's a bad analogy for that, isn't it? Since it's food and not a particularly low-calorie food. Since enchiladas have sauce, what am I doing? Anyway, but I am, because I don't have a recent history of trying something and then letting myself off the hook. I am actually going to go for the holistic program. I don't know, the whole picture. I don't want to use the word enchilada. Anyway, I am going to go for that. However, if I find that I'm failing in that method and I keep letting myself off the hook and being healthy all day and then ruining it at night, I am going to use what I just told you, which is I'm going to make my goals smaller. I'm going to make my, change up what I'm doing. And I don't think I'll back up to as much at the beginning, at least. I'm not going to make it as small as going from the whole plan to only changing one snack a day, but maybe I would go from changing my whole plan to going to no junk food, just meals, and not counting the calories in my meals, just eating normal meals that are healthy, but not worrying about how many calories are in them. And, if that's all I'm willing to do at that point, that's what I'm going to do, right? You're going to be here with me on this journey. You'll see what happens. But I'm telling you that if you're trying to make a change, either in your eating or if you're trying to make a change in making yourself exercise, and you find that you keep letting yourself off the hook and you're feeling bad, and that bad feeling makes you feel worse and takes away your motivation and has drained all your motivation to even try again, I'm telling you, make the goal smaller. That's the message that I'm trying to get to here. So I hope that you've gained something from that. I hope that you can apply that in your life. I'm going to certainly apply it in my life as I move forward and start setting more aggressive goals for myself, both with exercise and with eating. I'm certainly going to apply that lesson, and I think that that will be, a path to success. Might it take longer? Sure it will. But again, this isn't a 90-day program. It's not even a year-long program. The lifetime program that we're on here together. We're going to improve our lifestyle for the long run. Not for an event, not for a season of the year, but for the long run. And so if something takes a year and a half instead of a year to achieve, perfectly fine, right? That's the mindset I'm going in with, and I hope you are too. I don't think that we should waste any more of our precious mental energy on focusing on all or nothing thinking, especially if it hasn't been working, for us. We need to feel good, right? Life is short. We need to feel good about ourselves. We need to feel happy on a daily basis, not just when we've achieved some arbitrary goal of a certain weight on the scale or a certain appearance in the mirror, right? So I hope that you're with me on that sort of perspective, and then we can move forward together. Until tomorrow, I hope you have a great day. I hope you're feeling really motivated to make good changes in your life that fuel you and make you feel good about yourself. And I'm going to talk with you again tomorrow. Bye-bye. Take care.